everyone. Welcome to the Glow Podcast. I am here today with a very exciting guest. I have Leela from Blue Moth Hearing, and I am super excited to speak with her. But for those of you who are new here, we are tailored marketing. We partner with organizations within the health, wellness, and longevity space to fuel growth through strategic marketing and sales strategies. So if you are interested, drop a comment below. Leela, thank you so much for coming on today. I am super excited to talk with you. If you would, I would love if you would just go ahead and give a little bit of an introduction so the listeners know who you are.
Sure. Thank you for having me, Taylor.
Of course.
My name is Leila. I am an audiologist. I've been an audiologist for about 15 years. I have been an audiologist in both private practice and healthcare settings, as well as at the VA. And more recently, in the last 5 years, I have become a tele-audiologist. So I provide all services remotely from testing to fitting. And currently I serve as the director of audiology for Blue Moth Hearing.
That is super awesome. Yeah, and that's such a cool journey too, because you've worked in so many different aspects of it. And I feel like it's kind of an industry that people maybe aren't as familiar with. Like if you haven't ever gone through something like that as well. So I would love to just for you to kind of just tell people more about Blue Moth and how you all are making it more accessible for people to get help with hearing.
Yeah, so Blue Moth was a creation from our CEO, Dr. Melanie Hecker. And so she actually had owned several private practices herself and had worked in brick and mortar for a long time. And there was 3 things that she really found was a big need in the hearing industry. So one was being accessibility. Everybody has a provider close to them and they have to make that drive, or the wait time to get an appointment is months. Second being that it wasn't fun. So, one of the things that we're realizing is, glasses and eye care can be so fun. It has been really changed in the last couple of years that people buy glasses as an extension of intellect, and it's such a fun part of who they are. And so she realized that audiology didn't have that. Hearing aids don't have the fun behind it. And then the other thing was the freedom of choice. So a lot of providers in the audiology space tend to choose one manufacturer that they kind of connect to. And so if you do finally have a provider close to you, you're kind of guided into what manufacturer you go to. And so Melanie realized that she wanted to be able to give people all 3 of those things. And so that's how the creation of Blue Moth came about, was being able to take all 3 of those things and combine it together by creating a virtual audiology company where the individual can have access to care without leaving home and being able to send them everything to their home to be able to have everything there. And then also just taking the stigma away from hearing loss and making it fun. And so making it to be innovative where you can choose colors and you can, really own your hearing loss versus being ashamed of it. And then also the whole idea of being able to have the freedom of choice. So we work with multiple manufacturers, and a lot of our packages reflect their ability in order to be able to make the choice guided by an audiologist.
That's so cool. I love that. Yeah, I do think that I have contacts, so I also have glasses, and I feel like it's fun when you're getting a new pair of glasses. It's ooh, do I want this shape, or do I want a color, And so it is a very fun experience, I know, from a glasses perspective. And I feel like it makes sense to want to do the same thing for hearing too. Why would you not want it to be oh, I get to pick out new hearing aids, rather than it being almost kind of a shameful thing, I feel is kind of attached to it. Have you seen that stigma as well?
Oh yes, absolutely. There's so many people who take so long to make the decision to finally get hearing aids. So on average, it's about a 7-year wait from the time that someone starts to notice that they have a hearing loss to the time that they actually will purchase hearing aids. So we're trying to figure out, well, how do we lower that? How do we actually encourage people to realize that hearing loss isn't necessarily a sign of aging or a sign of intelligence? That hearing loss is a part of life, and just like how vision loss is a part of life. And so, just making sure that people realize that it can be fun, it can be an extension of your personality, And it can actually help with your ability to feel confident in yourself. So that way you're bringing your best foot forward every day. And so I think one of the ways that we do that is just, make it more of a fun experience, not making it a shameful experience, and making sure that people feel like they're owning it. And I think sometimes that's one of the main reasons why being able to do everything remotely and at home is sometimes people aren't ready to make that commitment of walking in the
Yeah.
door of an audiology office, because they feel like when they walk in that door, it's immediately saying, like, there's something wrong with me. And with doing it more in the comfort of your own home, it gives you a little bit more control over how that is going to happen. And it makes you feel a little bit more safer and being able to kind of see if it's something that you're interested in trying. And that's where we come in, as that now you're there, you finally made the decision to see what options are out there. How do we encourage you to realize that this can be a safe experience, but it also can be a really fun experience, and it can be transformative for your life, and being able to have better social connections, improve your workplace life, and so many other parts of it. So that way people aren't waiting that 7 years to
Yeah.
finally be able to seek the treatment that they need.
Yeah, no, I think that that's so cool. And I'm sure that you've had such cool experiences too, where people maybe didn't even like realize that they were having hearing loss, honestly. Because like whenever I'm just going to relate this to my like vision loss with getting
Yeah.
glasses and contacts, because that's the closest experience that I've had. I didn't really realize that my vision was like that bad, honestly. And then I think I did like a vision test when I went to my primary care physician, and they were like, you can't read like the numbers. Like it was one of those old fashioned tests. And like I was like, no, like I really can't read them. And they were like, okay, we need to like do some more tests. Like you need to
Yeah.
go to an ophthalmologist and everything. And then like once I got my glasses and my contacts, I was like, oh my gosh, like I can see. Like I can't believe
Yeah.
people can actually see the trees like when you're driving on I wasn't driving at this point. I was young, but like you can see the trees like when you're a passenger in the car and stuff like on the side of the and I'm sure that people have kind of a similar experience too with hearing loss, where like they don't even recognize that maybe it's an issue because they're so accustomed to it almost. And
Absolutely.
then once they do get the hearing aids, they're like, oh my gosh, like you can hear from across the room like what somebody's saying, or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a whole new world, and it's so interesting. And I think that's sometimes why people wait for so long, is because with hearing loss, it's one of those things that a lot of times the person with hearing loss is not the person who first notices it. It's the people around
Yeah.
them. Because the people around them are the ones that are saying their name multiple times, and the person who has the hearing loss is only hearing it that last time. So they only think that that person said it one time. So
Yeah.
usually they're kind of the last one to get clued in, and a lot of times it's a nagging spouse or
Yeah.
somebody who's starting to say, hey, like I'm noticing that I have to say it multiple times. But you're absolutely right. The second that they put those hearing aids on, that's probably one of my favorite parts of my job, is that first follow-up visit after they've been wearing the hearing aids for about 2 weeks, and they come in and they say, like, I didn't realize that I had so many birds around my house. I walk
Yeah.
out to go to my car in the morning and I hear, all of these birds singing, but they haven't heard them in years. Or I didn't know
Yeah.
that my car blinker like blinks when makes a sound whenever it's
Yeah.
blinking. And it's all those little things that you don't realize you're missing out on life that do add value. And it's kind of just exciting to be able to hear those things again and realize that all of those conversations that you didn't realize you were missing out on, or that you kind of started to isolate yourself from. So many people, when they get into a social situation with a hearing loss, it's exhausting to
Oh
have
yeah,
to
I can
do
only
this.
imagine.
Yeah, so they kind of find themselves being more of an observer than actually a participator in the conversations, because it's just easier that way. It's easier to not have to try to be a part of it. And so slowly over time, that just leads to social isolation, where you are no longer, participating or wanting to go to those events because it just makes it more difficult. So to know that for so many people, it's not just hearing loss, it's all of the effects beyond it, that it truly impacts your life in so many different ways.
Yeah, no, that's So interesting, because I honestly haven't even thought of that social component with it, but I'm sure if you're in going to like an event or like a wedding or something like that, and you're already kind of struggling to hear someone when they're standing like right next to you, and now you're in a group of people and everyone's like talking kind of across like a circle or whatever, that's probably like stressful,
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
honestly, I would think, because you're like, okay, I already struggling to hear someone that's right next to me, and so
Mhm.
trying to hear across, like with all of these other people talking around me too, and all these distractions like that, yeah, I can only imagine how stressful that would be.
Yeah, absolutely. And it just makes it easier to not go to those events because if not, they feel like they end up being embarrassed, by conversation turning to them and not knowing the topic of conversation or answering the wrong way. Somebody asking one question and saying something totally off topic and then it becomes a joke. And so a lot of people just
Yeah.
find it easier to avoid those situations and not even put themselves in there. And so, it's one of those things that sometimes people feel like having a hearing aid is actually the self-conscious part, the embarrassing part, but they don't realize that them in conversations on a daily basis having to repeat, ask people to repeat or ignoring them because they didn't realize that somebody was talking to them, that is just as awkward and uncomfortable. That sometimes now that hearing aids are so cosmetically appealing, they are made smaller, and also
Yeah,
because our society is now turning to this ear pod movement, right? Like it's
for
so
sure.
common to see people have things in their ears all the time because people are using it constantly to communicate that it's not a clear sign of weakness or a clear sign of, oh my goodness, you can't hear. It's just part of society. And hearing aids are so cool now. They are earbuds, so they stream your phone calls, they stream music, they allow
That's
you
so
to be
cool.
connected all the time. So, the way that our society is going into the tech world, it's almost, I think, super cool to be able to be on top of it and to be able to have that and then not feel like you're missing out or not feeling like you have to say no or not feeling that it's impacting your work and performance, that you are not being able to perform in your environment and your occupation to the best of your ability.
Yeah, no, I think that's really cool. And recently, actually, I was speaking with someone and they were like, oh, yeah, like I actually just got hearing aids. And like they lifted up their hair and
Mhm.
like they were there, but like you couldn't even see them,
Yeah,
like they were clear, and like I would have never noticed if she hadn't told me that she was wearing them. So then if maybe you still are in that stage where you're like, okay, I'm not ready for like the colors and to like display it, but like there still are options as well that you can be more discreet with it if you want
absolutely.
to.
Yeah, yeah. Because a lot of times hearing aids have such a bad reputation from the past. And so a lot of people think about their grandparents who used to wear hearing aids that was this big bulky thing in their ear that whistled all the time.
Yeah.
And that was just, not at all appealing. And so that's when they hear hearing aids and they're like, oh my gosh, everybody's going to know and it's going to be so obvious. But it is amazing how cosmetically appealing that manufacturers have continued to be able to do. They take something that is essentially little mini computers and they fit it inside such a small space to be able to put in or behind the ear. And it is truly incredible that we have been able to move in the direction of making them small, but actually improving the way that they work and improving the technology that they're not going to be whistling, that no one's even going to know you have them there. It's pretty incredible. And I think a lot of times it's more of the person thinking that people see it, whereas we just don't, as an observer and the outside, it's just not even something that's on our minds, nor something
Yeah.
that we feel like that we need to look for. So it's definitely more on the person because they feel of it as a negative, and that's where, like you said, I mean, glasses have such a cool, there's so many people who wear glasses that don't need them, that
Yeah.
they think it's cool, it's an accessory. And so eventually we want to get to the point where hearing aids feel like an accessory because it's something that you feel proud of or something that you just wear that doesn't need to be known by everybody. It doesn't need to be on display. So that you have that option of just having it and not having anybody think twice about it.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I feel like with that too, and honestly, even too, with people not waiting like the 7 years to get their hearing checked, but actually to take action, I feel like there's such an education education piece to that too, is like educating people on like, okay, like go to your primary care, but like maybe try going to an audiologist as well, or try telehealth with an audiologist too, so like that you can not wait the 7 years, you know.
Exactly.
Because, and like I said, I feel like there's such an education piece with that too, and then also promoting like, hey, we have like hearing aids that look really pretty cool now, or like you can go the route too where maybe they're not going to see them if you don't want people to see them. And so how are you kind of like, how are y'all educating people on this with like, okay, don't wait the 7 years?
Yeah. So one of the things that I think is really important is always just having a baseline. It's always so great to know where you are at any point. And so I think a lot of times people all over in every aspect of our health, we tend to wait until there's a problem to actually go and see if there is a problem.
Yeah.
But I strongly always recommend that someone has a baseline to kind of know where they are. So just in case somebody, one day you wake up and you think that something's not right, then you kind of know where you started off at. And it also takes away the scary part of it, not thinking like, my goodness, I'm going to go today and find out something's wrong, but I feel good right now. Let me just go make sure everything is okay. So then in a couple of years, it's just a normal thing for you to just continuously go. So just making sure that you are thinking about your hearing health, having your hearing tested is recommended. Insurance usually covers a hearing test. So, and that's where, Blue Moth, we do offer virtual hearing tests, so we can make it super convenient. We know that when people are working, it's hard to get that time off of work or to have to go in the evenings. We send all of the hearing test equipment to your home, and then I would meet, or one of the audiologists would meet with you and test your hearing virtually. And that makes it just so it's a little bit more convenient. You don't have to wait that time. So our biggest thing is, we're an educating company. I think that I love to empower my patients to feel like they have decisions, they understand the process, they understand how their hearing works in order to prevent hearing loss and protecting it. So, during those appointments, even if we come back and it's a baseline and it's normal hearing, what do we do for the next couple of years while we wait till your next hearing test? Let's protect it. Let's make sure you're wearing your hearing protection when you are in mowing the lawn or going to a noisy concert, because a lot of times people think of hearing loss being associated to maybe gunshots or fireworks or something that's very loud. And while yes, that's true, it can also be something that we don't typically find as a noise that is extremely loud or bothersome to our ears, but it actually is. So when you go to those concerts, wearing hearing protection, or while you're out mowing the lawn or weed whacking, putting your hearing protection in, all of those things is because you want to protect what you have. So the educational piece behind it, so that way you're preventing hearing loss. And then also the educating what your choices are. So not knowing what is out there is one of the hardest things. And unfortunately in the hearing aid industry, it's flooded. It's flooded with over-the-counter options, prescription, basic amplifiers that you can get online. And so people feel very overwhelmed by it. And that's another thing that we are very passionate about is education and being able to really explain and understand what the options are out there and what's going to be best for their needs, both for their hearing loss, both financially, and also for what's going to fit their lifestyle. So I'm very much feel that my job as an audiologist is to empower my patients so that way they can make the best decision that's for them.
Yeah, no, I think that that's so important too. I love that. And what for Blue Moth, what do you think kind of are y'all's goals over like the next year or two? Like what are y'all really focused on as a company with growth?
Yeah, so with growth, we are always looking at expanding our partnerships. So we want to make sure that we can provide our patients with the most choices possible. So whether or not that's more hearing aid manufacturers that we're partnering with that we can educate our patients on and provide that option, whether that is looking at over-the-counter options for those patients who can't afford prescription hearing aids, as well as helping our tinnitus population. So tinnitus is obviously one of those issues that is continuously growing and such a high need for the specialization and how to help and to be able to treat tinnitus. So we are looking right now, we're actually in the next couple of months going to be launching our tinnitus package where we are offering cognitive behavioral therapy program through an app, and then as well as sound therapy devices to be able to help. So tinnitus and hearing loss go hand in hand. Oftentimes there's a connection, but sometimes there's not, and it's just tinnitus in isolation. And sometimes those patients get lost because they don't quite fit into the stereotypical and they don't know where to go. And so once again, just like the hearing aid market, the tinnitus market is also flooded with so many quick fixes of how to get rid of your tinnitus, how to treat your tinnitus. And sometimes they just need somebody to sit down and say, like, these are the options. These are what are some of the things that can be helpful, and how to navigate what is real in that industry. So we really feel a strong pull to our tinnitus population as well as those who are struggling with hearing.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. That's awesome. I love that. Well, so cool. I feel like y'all are doing such awesome things over there, and I'm super, super excited for you. I would love for you to tell everyone what is the best way to get in contact with you? What is the best way to learn more too about Blue Moth Hearing?
Yeah, so you can check us out at BlueMothHearing.com, and also we have all socials, so you can find us on all socials, and we are going to be launching our YouTube channel soon that we're going to be having videos, educational, and just some basic things that people are questioning about hearing and tinnitus, and so you can follow us there.
Awesome. I really, really appreciate you coming on and educating us a little bit more about hearing and hearing loss. And yeah, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Taylor. It was so nice, wonderful. Thank you so much.